I opened the front door of our house expecting the familiar warmth of home to wash over me. Instead, I was greeted by a sight that made my heart stop. There in our kitchen was my wife Kate, locked in a passionate kiss with her boss John. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My mind refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Kate and I had been married for 10 years. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and built a life together. She was the mother of our 2 children, James and Emma, and up until that moment, I thought she was my soulmate. Every happy memory we shared flashed through my mind, now tainted by this betrayal. I stood frozen in the doorway, a silent witness to their intimacy. Kate's hands were tangled in John's hair, their bodies pressed together as if they couldn't bear to be apart. My presence went unnoticed, their world impenetrable. I felt a wave of nausea rise within me, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, they broke apart, and Kate's eyes met mine. Shock and guilt flashed across her face, quickly replaced by a cold, defiant stare. John turned around, his expression smug and unrepentant. It was as if he relished my pain. "David, Kate started, but I held up a hand to stop her. Words wouldn't come. My world had been shattered in an instant, and nothing she could say would piece it back together. I turned and walked out, the door slamming shut behind me. The cool evening air hit my face, a stark contrast to the suffocating heat of the scene I'd just witnessed. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, hurt, betrayal. How long had this been going on? How could she do this to me, to our family? I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to make sense of it all. Memories of late nights, unexplained absences, and cold, distant behavior from Kate began to fall into place. The puzzle pieces formed a picture I didn't want to see but could no longer ignore. She had been pulling away from me for months, and I had been too blind to notice. Or perhaps I didn't want to notice. Eventually, I found myself parked outside a small all-night diner. I went inside, ordered a coffee, and sat in a corner booth staring blankly at the steaming cup in front of me. The reality of my situation was sinking in, heavy and oppressive. My marriage was a lie, my wife was unfaithful, and my family was on the brink of falling apart. As dawn approached, I made a decision. I couldn't let Kate and John's betrayal destroy me. I had to be strong for James and Emma. They needed me now more than ever. I would fight for them, for their well-being and our future. Kate and John had taken enough from me. I wouldn't let them take my children too. With a resolve I didn't know I had, I left the diner and drove back home. The road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, but I knew one thing for sure. I would not let this define me. I would rebuild my life piece by piece and come out stronger on the other side. Looking back, it's almost surreal to think of the life Kate and I built together. Our marriage, once a fortress of love and happiness, now feels like a distant dream. We met in college, where she captivated me with her intelligence, warmth, and infectious laughter. From the moment we started dating, it was clear we were meant to be together. Our wedding was a beautiful, intimate affair. Surrounded by family and friends, we exchanged vows under a canopy of autumn leaves. I remember the way Kate looked that day, her eyes shining with love and promise. We danced the night away, lost in our world, dreaming of the future we would create together. Soon after, our family began to grow. James was our firstborn, a bright and curious boy who filled our home with laughter. I can still recall the sleepless nights we spent rocking him to sleep, feeling his tiny heartbeat against our chests. Kate was a natural mother, patient and nurturing. She would sing lullabies to James, her voice soft and soothing, a sound that always calmed him. 2 years later, Emma joined our family. She was a bundle of joy, always smiling and full of energy. Kate and I navigated the chaos of raising 2 young children, finding joy in the small moments: family dinners, bedtime stories, weekend outings to the park. Kate had a way of making everything special. Her creativity turned ordinary days into magical adventures for the kids. We were a team, balancing careers and parenthood, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. Kate always seemed like the perfect partner. She was thoughtful, loving, and dedicated. On our anniversary, she would surprise me with heartfelt gifts and handwritten notes, reminders of the love we shared. One summer, we took a family trip to the beach. It was one of those perfect vacations where everything just fell into place. The kids played in the sand, building castles and chasing waves. Kate and I watched them from our blanket, holding hands and basking in the sun. I remember thinking that life couldn't get any better than this. Kate's passion extended beyond our family. She was deeply involved in the community, volunteering at the kids' school and organizing neighborhood events. Everyone admired her, and I felt proud to be her husband. She had an incredible ability to connect with people, to make them feel valued and appreciated. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and countless memories. Every corner held a piece of our story. The kitchen where we cooked together, the living room where we celebrated holidays, and the backyard where the kids played for hours. It was a sanctuary, a place where we felt safe and loved. Thinking about those times, it's hard to reconcile the woman I knew with the one I saw in the kitchen with John. The betrayal cut deep, shattering the perfect image I had of our life. But despite the pain, those happy memories remain. They are a testament to the love we once shared, and a reminder of the good that still exists in my life through our children, James and Emma. In those moments of reflection, I realized that the past cannot be erased, but it also cannot define the future. The love and happiness we once had were real, and they have shaped who I am today. As I move forward, I carry those memories with me, using them as a foundation to rebuild and create new, lasting moments of joy for my children and myself. The first seeds of doubt were planted months before the fateful night I found Kate and John in our kitchen. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Kate started spending more and more time at work. She would come home late, often after the kids were already in bed. At first, I didn't think much of it. She had always been ambitious and dedicated to her career, and I admired that about her. But then, the late nights became more frequent. Kate seemed distant, her laughter less frequent, her touch colder. She would come home exhausted, barely speaking to me before retreating to bed. The warmth that had once defined our relationship was slowly being replaced by a chill that I couldn't ignore. One evening, after another particularly late return, I decided I couldn't stay silent any longer. The kids were asleep, and I was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting for her. When she walked in, looking weary and distracted, I took a deep breath and confronted her. "Kate, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, a hint of irritation in her eyes. "Can it wait until morning, David? I'm really tired." "No, it can't. You've been coming home late almost every night. You barely talk to me anymore. What's going on?" She sighed and dropped her bag on the floor. "David, it's work. I've been telling you that. We're in the middle of a huge project, and I'm up for a promotion. I have to put in the extra hours. I get that work is important, but this is more than just a busy period. You've changed, Kate. You're distant, and it feels like you're shutting me out." Her expression softened, and she took a seat across from me. "I'm sorry, David. I know I've been distant, but it's just work. I want this promotion. It's a big opportunity for me, for us. Once things settle down, I promise I'll be around more." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust that this was just a temporary phase. So I nodded, trying to push my doubts aside. "Okay, I understand. Just don't shut me out, Kate. We're in this together." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I know, and I appreciate your support. Just a little longer, okay?" I forced a smile, hoping that things would get better. But as the weeks went by, nothing changed. If anything, the distance between us grew. Kate continued to come home late, and when she was home, she was preoccupied, often glued to her phone or laptop. The nights we used to spend talking and laughing were replaced by silence. The connection we once had felt strained, almost broken. I started to feel like I was living with a stranger, someone who resembled my wife but acted like someone else entirely. I confided in my friends Mike and Rachel about what was happening. They reassured me, saying it was probably just work stress and that things would get better once the project was over. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. Then, there were the little things that didn't add up. The way Kate would quickly put her phone away when I walked into the room. The missed calls from unknown numbers. The vague answers when I asked about her day. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more troubling than the last. Despite my growing suspicions, I tried to keep faith in our relationship. I reminded myself of the woman I married, the life we had built together, and the love we shared. But the cracks were there, widening with each passing day, and I could feel our foundation starting to crumble. The confrontation had ended with promises of change, but as the days turned into weeks, those promises remained unfulfilled. The Kate I knew was slipping away, replaced by someone I could barely recognize, and I was left grasping at the remnants of our life, desperately trying to hold on to what was left. In those moments of uncertainty and fear, I couldn't have imagined the full extent of what was happening. The betrayal that was unfolding right under my nose, the lies that were about to come crashing down. All I knew was that the woman I loved was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. The kids were playing in the backyard, their laughter filling the air, while I was inside, sorting through some paperwork in the living room. Kate had left her phone on the coffee table, something she rarely did these days. A message notification lit up the screen, catching my attention. Normally I wouldn't snoop, but an instinctive pull made me glance at the sender's name. It was from John. My heart pounded as I reached for the phone, my hands trembling. The message preview read, "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." A cold wave of dread washed over me, making it hard to breathe. I unlocked the phone, needing to see the full message to confirm what my heart already knew. John's message continued, painting a vivid picture of their time together. My world tilted, and I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How could she? How could the woman I loved, the mother of my children, do this to me? I waited for Kate to return from her errands, the minutes stretching into agonizing hours. When she finally walked through the door, her smile faded as she saw the look on my face and the phone in my hand. "David, what's wrong?" she asked, a hint of nervousness in her voice. I held up the phone, the damning message on display. "What is this, Kate? Explain this to me." Her eyes widened, and for a moment, she was speechless. Then she quickly composed herself. "David, it's not what you think. John and we've been working closely together. That message is out of context." "Out of context!" I shouted, unable to contain my anger. "He's talking about last night, Kate. What happened last night?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Her silence was answer enough. I took a step closer, my voice low and trembling with emotion. "Just tell me the truth, Kate. Don't lie to me anymore." She looked away, tears welling up in her eyes. "Okay, fine. Yes, I slept with him. But it was a mistake, David. It only happened once. I swear it was a moment of weakness." "A moment of weakness?" I echoed, feeling a mix of rage and heartbreak. "How long has this been going on? How many more moments of weakness have there been?" Kate shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I swear it was just that one time. I don't know what came over me. I love you, David. It didn't mean anything." Didn't mean anything. I could barely get the words out, my throat tight with emotion. "You betrayed me, Kate. You betrayed our family. How can you stand there and tell me it didn't mean anything?" She reached out to touch me, but I pulled away. "Please, David, let's talk about this. We can work through it." I shook my head, stepping back. "I don't know if we can, Kate. You broke something in me, in us. I don't know if it can ever be fixed." The room fell silent, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavily between us. The life we had built, the trust we had shared, everything was shattered in an instant. I couldn't look at her without feeling the sting of her infidelity. "I need some time," I finally said, my voice hollow. "I need to think." Without another word, I walked out of the house, leaving Kate standing there, crying. The world outside seemed foreign, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I got into my car and drove, the open road offering a brief escape from the pain. As the miles passed, I tried to process what had happened. The woman I had loved and trusted had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The foundation of our marriage was cracked, and I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Life as I knew it would never be the same again. Determined to confront John, I decided to visit him at work. My emotions were a storm of anger and betrayal, but I knew I needed to keep my composure. This wasn't just about my marriage. It was about standing up for myself and getting answers. As I walked into the office building, I felt a rush of determination. I found John in his corner office, leaning back in his chair with a smug look on his face. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "David," he greeted me, a condescending smile playing on his lips. What brings you here? I closed the door behind me, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to talk, John, about Kate. He raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. What about her? Don't play dumb, I snapped. I know about the affair. How long has this been going on? John leaned forward, his smile widening. A few months, give or take. Kate and I have a special connection. I'm surprised it took you this long to find out. His words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. How could you do this? You knew she was married. You knew we had a family. He shrugged, his nonchalance infuriating. Kate made her own choices, David. She wasn't happy with you, and I provided what she needed. It's as simple as that. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to punch him. You're a disgusting piece of work, John. He laughed, a cold, mocking sound. And you're naive if you think this won't affect your career? I have a lot of influence here, David. Maybe it's time you started looking for another job. His threat hung in the air, a stark reminder of the power he held over my professional life. I realized then that this wasn't just about Kate's betrayal. It was about my future, my livelihood. Is that a threat? I asked, my voice low and dangerous. Call it what you want, he replied, leaning back in his chair. But you'd be wise to consider your options carefully. I stared at him, the reality of the situation sinking in. This man had not only stolen my wife, but was now threatening my career. I knew I couldn't let him win. I had to take control of my life, starting with ending my marriage to Kate. Without another word, I turned and left his office. The drive home was a blur of thoughts and emotions. By the time I walked through the door, I had made up my mind. Kate was waiting for me in the living room, her face pale and drawn. David, where have you been? I went to see John, I said, my voice cold and detached. Her eyes widened with fear. What did he say? He confirmed everything, I replied. He said you've been seeing each other for months. Tears filled her eyes. David, please, I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Stop, I interrupted, raising a hand. I can't do this anymore, Kate. I can't keep living this lie. She sobbed, her hands covering her face. What are you saying? I'm saying I want a divorce, I said firmly. This marriage is over. I can't forgive you for what you've done. For a moment, she was silent. Then she nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. If that's what you want, David, then I'll respect your decision. I never meant to hurt you like this. But the damage was done. The trust, the love, the life we had built together, it was all shattered. I felt a sense of relief mixed with overwhelming sadness. Ending our marriage was the hardest decision I had ever made, but I knew it was the right one. In the weeks that followed, we began the painful process of divorce. Lawyers were involved, papers were signed, and custody arrangements were discussed. It was a turbulent time, filled with heartache and uncertainty. But through it all, I held on to the belief that this was the first step toward reclaiming my life. As I stood in the wreckage of my marriage, I realized that I had the strength to move forward. For James, Emma, and myself, I would rebuild. The path ahead was daunting, but it was mine to walk, and walk it I would, one step at a time. The decision to divorce Kate was only the beginning of my fight. As the reality of our separation set in, another, more daunting battle emerged. The fight for custody of our children. Kate demanded full custody, arguing that I couldn't handle raising James and Emma on my own. Her claim cut me deeply, fueling my determination to prove her wrong. We had always shared parenting responsibilities. I was there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. To hear Kate suggest that I was unfit to care for our children was not only insulting but deeply painful. But I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about what was best for James and Emma. Kate wasted no time in bringing in the heavy artillery. She enlisted the help of John's lawyers, a team of sharp, ruthless professionals who were determined to paint me in the worst possible light. They built a case around my recent job loss, implying that my financial instability made me an unfit parent. They dug into every aspect of my life, looking for any weakness they could exploit. Our first day in court was a nightmare. Kate's lawyers portrayed her as a dedicated, loving mother who was simply trying to protect her children. They painted me as a struggling, unstable father, incapable of providing a stable home. It was a harsh, unforgiving narrative, one that I knew wasn't true but felt powerless to combat. But I wasn't alone. My friends Mike and Rachel stood by me through every step of the process. They provided emotional support and helped me gather evidence to counter Kate's claims. We compiled records of my involvement in the kids' lives, from school events to medical appointments, showcasing my active role as a father. My lawyer, though not as high-powered as Kate's team, was dedicated and thorough. She helped me navigate the complexities of the legal system, crafting a strategy to demonstrate my capability as a parent. We emphasized my strong relationship with James and Emma, their emotional well-being in my care, and my unwavering commitment to their happiness. The courtroom battles were intense and draining. Each hearing felt like a personal attack, with every aspect of my life scrutinized and judged. Kate sat across from me, her expression a mix of determination and regret. It was clear that this fight was taking a toll on both of us, but there was too much at stake to back down. Throughout the ordeal, I kept my focus on James and Emma. They were my anchor, my reason for fighting. I knew that their well-being was paramount, and I believed wholeheartedly that they needed both parents in their lives. Sole custody of Kate would mean losing the precious moments and everyday interactions that defined our bond. The turning point came when Rachel uncovered a critical piece of evidence. She found proof of Kate and John's premeditated plan to manipulate the custody arrangements in their favor. Emails between them revealed discussions about using Kate's full custody claim as leverage in our divorce proceedings. It was a damning revelation, one that exposed their true motives and undermined their credibility. Armed with this evidence, my lawyer presented a compelling case to the court. We argued that Kate's pursuit of full custody was not in the best interest of the children, but was instead driven by personal vendetta and manipulation. The judge listened intently, the weight of our arguments shifting the balance in my favor. In the final hearing, the judge made a decision that changed our lives. He granted us joint custody, recognizing the importance of both parents in James and Emma's upbringing. The relief and joy I felt at that moment were indescribable. I had fought for my children and won, securing a future where I could continue to be a central part of their lives. The custody battle was one of the hardest challenges I had ever faced, but it reinforced my strength and determination. It reminded me of the depth of my love for James and Emma and my commitment to their happiness. As we left the courtroom, I held their hands tightly, ready to start this new chapter of our lives together. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with the complexities of co-parenting and healing from the wounds of betrayal. But I knew that we would face it together, stronger and more resilient than ever. For the sake of my children, I was ready to move forward one step at a time, into a future filled with hope and possibility. Losing my job was a blow I hadn't anticipated, but given John's threat, I suppose I should have seen it coming. One morning, a few weeks into the custody battle, I was called into my supervisor's office. The conversation was brief and cold. Despite my years of dedicated service, I was being let go. The reason given was restructuring, but I knew better. This was John's doing, his way of undermining me further. The immediate aftermath of losing my job was a blur of panic and despair. I had bills to pay and children to support, and now I faced the prospect of doing it all without a steady income. I spent hours updating my resume, scouring job boards and reaching out to contacts. But the market was tough, and positions were scarce. My financial situation rapidly deteriorated. Savings I had set aside for emergencies were drained quicker than I could have imagined. I started selling off possessions, anything to keep afloat. The stress of my financial woes began to weigh heavily on me, impacting every aspect of my life. Kate's lawyers were quick to seize upon my financial instability, using it to question my ability to provide for James and Emma. In court, they painted a bleak picture, arguing that I was incapable of offering a stable home environment. Each hearing became a battlefield where my competence as a father was relentlessly attacked. The impact on my children was heartbreaking. James and Emma could sense the tension, even if they didn't fully understand it. I tried to shield them from the worst of it, but there were moments when the strain showed. Simple things like groceries and school supplies became a source of anxiety. I did everything I could to ensure they didn't feel the brunt of our financial struggles, but kids are perceptive, and they knew something was wrong. My friends, Mike and Rachel, continued to support me through this ordeal. They offered financial assistance, which I gratefully accepted, though it pained me to rely on their generosity. They also helped watch the kids while I attended job interviews and court hearings. Their unwavering support was a lifeline during those dark days. Despite the setbacks, I refused to give up. My love for James and Emma fueled my determination to keep fighting. I worked odd jobs, anything I could find, to bring in some income. Each day was a grind, a relentless struggle to make ends meet while maintaining my dignity and focus on the custody battle. The financial stress also began to affect my relationship with the kids. There were times when I was short-tempered and distant, consumed by worry and frustration. I hated myself for those moments, knowing they deserved better. But I was doing my best to hold everything together with frayed seams. The turning point came when my lawyer suggested we bring in a financial advisor to testify on my behalf. We needed to demonstrate to the court that, despite my current situation, I had a solid plan to regain financial stability. The advisor helped me create a detailed budget and a long-term financial plan, emphasizing my commitment to providing a stable home for my children. In court, we presented this plan as evidence of my dedication and ability to overcome adversity. I spoke from the heart about my determination to support my children and give them the best possible life, despite the challenges we faced. I admitted my mistakes and acknowledged the difficulties, but made it clear that my love for James and Emma was unwavering. The judge considered everything, from my financial struggles to my commitment as a father. While the outcome was still uncertain, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had shown the court that despite the obstacles, I was fighting tirelessly for my children's well-being. As we left the courthouse that day, I held James and Emma close, promising them that no matter what happened, I would always be there for them. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but I knew that with determination, resilience, and the love I had for my children, we would find a way through this storm. This chapter of our lives was far from over, but I was prepared to face whatever came next. For James, for Emma, and for the future we deserved, I would continue to fight, one day at a time. Amidst the turmoil of losing my job and fighting for custody of James and Emma, there was one constant source of strength and support: my friends, Mike and Rachel. Their unwavering presence during this difficult period was nothing short of a lifeline. Mike and I had been friends since college. He was the kind of guy who always knew how to lift my spirits, no matter how dire the situation. Rachel, his wife, was equally supportive, a calming influence with a practical mind. Together, they formed a formidable team, providing the help and reassurance I desperately needed. When the news of my job loss and the ensuing financial struggle broke, Mike and Rachel were the first to step in. "We're here for you, David," Mike said, his tone firm and resolute. "Whatever you need, just ask." They meant it. From helping with the kids to assisting with legal preparations, they became my rock. Rachel, who had some experience in legal matters, offered invaluable advice. She helped me understand the complexities of the custody battle, reviewed documents, and even attended some of the court hearings with me. "Don't worry, David," she would often say, her voice filled with calm confidence. "We'll get through this. Just keep focusing on James and Emma." Mike, on the other hand, took a more hands-on approach with the kids. He'd pick them up from school when I was tied up with job interviews or court appointments, and he organized weekend outings to keep their minds off the stress at home. James and Emma adored him, and I was grateful beyond words for the sense of normalcy he brought into their lives. One evening, after a particularly grueling day in court, I found myself at Mike and Rachel's house. The kids were playing in the backyard with Mike, their laughter a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. Rachel handed me a cup of tea and sat down next to me. "You're doing everything you can," she said softly. "The judge will see that, and no matter what, you're an amazing father." Her words were a comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this fight. The legal battle was taking a toll on me, but knowing I had friends who believed in me and were willing to fight alongside me made all the difference. As the weeks turned into months, their support never wavered. Rachel continued to assist with legal strategies, while Mike became a surrogate uncle to my kids, providing them with the stability and care I sometimes struggled to offer amidst the chaos. One night after putting James and Emma to bed, I sat in the living room with Mike and Rachel. We talked about everything and nothing, the kind of conversation that brought a sense of normalcy back into my life. As we laughed and reminisced, I realized how lucky I was to have them. "You know," I said, my voice choked with emotion. I don't know how I'd be getting through this without you guys. Mike clapped a hand on my shoulder. We're family, David, and family sticks together. Rachel nodded in agreement. You're not alone in this. We're with you every step of the way. Their words were a balm to my wounded soul, a reminder that despite the betrayals and hardships, there was still good in my life. The love and support of true friends were invaluable, giving me the strength to keep fighting for my children and our future. As we sat there, a sense of peace washed over me. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but I knew I could face them with Mike and Rachel by my side. Their unwavering support had become the cornerstone of my resilience, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. With friends like these, I knew that no matter how difficult things got, I had a lifeline to pull me through. Together, we would navigate the storm, and I would emerge stronger, ready to build a new life for James, Emma, and myself. The unveiling of deception. The custody battle had taken its toll on me, both emotionally and financially. Each day felt like an uphill struggle, but I kept pushing forward for the sake of James and Emma. Throughout this tumultuous period, Mike and Rachel remained my steadfast allies, offering unwavering support. Then came the day that would change everything, the day Rachel uncovered the truth. One evening, Rachel called me over to their house, her voice tinged with urgency. David, you need to come over. There's something you need to see. When I arrived, Rachel was already sitting at the kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her and a stack of printed emails beside her. Mike was there too, his face grim. What's going on? I asked, anxiety knotting in my stomach. Rachel took a deep breath and gestured to the laptop. I've been digging into some things, David. I found something you need to know about. She handed me a printed email, and as I read through it, my heart sank. It was an email exchange between Kate and John, dated several months before I had discovered their affair. They were discussing their plans in explicit detail, plotting to manipulate the divorce proceedings and secure full custody of James and Emma. The language they used was cold and calculating, devoid of any consideration for the emotional wreckage they were causing. I can't believe this, I muttered, my hands shaking. They planned everything. They wanted to destroy me. Rachel nodded, her eyes filled with empathy and anger. I knew something was off, so I started looking into their communications. These emails are just the tip of the iceberg. Mike placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We've got the proof now, David. This changes everything. The realization of their deception hit me like a ton of bricks. Kate and John had orchestrated this entire ordeal, not just the affair, but the divorce and the custody battle as well. Their betrayal went deeper than I had ever imagined. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and a renewed determination to fight back. We need to take this to my lawyer, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This evidence could turn the tide in our favor. Rachel nodded. Already ahead of you, I've made copies of everything. We need to act fast and present this in court. The next day we met with my lawyer, who was astounded by the evidence Rachel had uncovered. She immediately set to work, preparing a motion to introduce the new evidence to the court. The revelation of Kate and John's premeditated plan to manipulate the legal system was a game changer. In the following court hearing, my lawyer presented the emails, detailing the calculated nature of Kate and John's actions. The judge's expression shifted as he read through the documents, his initial neutrality giving way to concern and disapproval. Kate and John's lawyer attempted to dismiss the evidence as irrelevant, but the judge was having none of it. The courtroom buzzed with the weight of the revelation. Kate's face was a mask of shock and fear. For the first time, she seemed to realize the gravity of what they had done. John, sitting beside her, looked equally rattled. The judge ordered an investigation into the emails and their implications for the custody case. Over the next few weeks, the court-appointed investigator delved into the evidence, confirming its authenticity and uncovering even more damning communications. It became clear that Kate and John had conspired to manipulate the divorce and custody proceedings to their advantage, showing a blatant disregard for the children's well-being and my rights as their father. The judge's final ruling was a moment of vindication. Not only was joint custody maintained, but the court also issued a reprimand against Kate and John for their deceitful actions. The judge emphasized the importance of co-parenting in good faith and the detrimental impact of their behavior on the children's emotional health. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a mixture of relief and triumph. The truth had come to light, and justice had been served. My fight was far from over, but this victory was a crucial step in reclaiming my life and protecting my children. Outside the courthouse, Mike and Rachel were waiting for me. Rachel hugged me tightly, and Mike clapped me on the back. "You did it, David. The truth is out." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied, my voice filled with gratitude. "Thank you, both of you, for everything." Rachel smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "We're just glad you finally have a fair shot. Now focus on rebuilding and giving James and Emma the stability they deserve." With the support of my friends and the truth on my side, I knew I could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The deception had been unveiled, and with it, a new chapter in my life began, one built on resilience, honesty, and the unwavering love of a father for his children. The courtroom was abuzz with tension as my lawyer presented the evidence of Kate and John's conspiracy. The judge's demeanor shifted from impartial to deeply attentive as he reviewed the damning emails and communications that Rachel had uncovered. Each word seemed to weigh heavily in the air, revealing the calculated betrayal orchestrated against me, and more importantly, against James and Emma. My lawyer argued passionately for a thorough investigation, emphasizing the implications of Kate and John's actions on the integrity of the legal process and the well-being of our children. It was a pivotal moment, one that would either reaffirm my faith in justice or leave me disillusioned by its failures. Weeks passed as the court-appointed investigator meticulously combed through the evidence. Each day felt like an eternity as I waited anxiously for the outcome, knowing that the future of my relationship with James and Emma hung in the balance. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. In a packed courtroom, the judge delivered his verdict, his voice clear and unwavering. He condemned Kate and John's deceitful conduct, describing it as a betrayal of trust and an attempt to manipulate the legal system for personal gain. "The evidence presented in this case," the judge declared, "clearly demonstrates that Kate acted in a manner that was not in the best interests of the children. Her actions, along with those of her accomplice John, have undermined the integrity of these proceedings." My heart pounded as I listened to the judge's words. This was the moment I had been fighting for, the moment that would determine the course of my children's lives. The judge continued, his tone firm yet compassionate. "Therefore, in the best interests of James and Emma, this court grants joint custody to both parents. Mr. Last Name has shown unwavering dedication to his children's well-being, despite the challenges he has faced. It is clear that he is capable and committed to providing a nurturing and stable environment." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Joint custody meant I could continue to be a significant presence in James and Emma's lives, sharing in their joys and supporting them through their challenges. The judge's recognition of my efforts was a validation of everything I had endured and overcome. As I walked out of the courtroom, emotions swirled within me: relief, gratitude, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. Mike and Rachel were waiting outside, their faces mirroring my sense of triumph. "We did it," Rachel said softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "You did it, David." Mike clapped me on the back. "You fought hard, buddy, and you got what you deserved." I hugged them both tightly, overwhelmed with gratitude for their unwavering support throughout the ordeal. Together, we had faced down betrayal and injustice, emerging stronger and more united than ever. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but with joint custody secured and the truth exposed, I knew I could face whatever came next. Justice had prevailed, not just for me, but for James and Emma, the true victors in this hard-fought battle for their future. Starting afresh was daunting, but it was also liberating. The courtroom battles and the emotional roller coaster of the past few years had left their mark, but they had also shaped me into someone stronger and more resilient. With the joint custody secured, I embraced my role as a father with renewed determination. James and Emma became the center of my world, and every decision I made revolved around their well-being and happiness. We spent weekends exploring parks, playing board games, and simply enjoying each other's company. Our bond grew stronger with each passing day, and I cherished every moment we shared. Professionally, I decided to pursue a new career path. The experience of navigating the legal system and advocating for my children ignited a passion for law and justice. With the support of Mike, who connected me with his contacts in the legal field, I enrolled in evening classes and embarked on a journey to become a paralegal. It was challenging balancing work, parenting, and studying, but I was driven by a sense of purpose. Mike and Rachel continued to be pillars of support in my life. They celebrated my successes, picked me up during setbacks, and stood by me through it all. Our friendship deepened, and I found solace in their unwavering loyalty. As the years passed, I reflected on how far I had come. The betrayal by Kate had been a catalyst for change, a painful yet necessary chapter that ultimately led to a more fulfilling life. I had learned to prioritize what truly mattered: love, family, and genuine connections. Looking back, I realized that the challenges I had faced had molded me into a better person and a devoted father. James and Emma had grown into resilient, compassionate individuals, and I took pride in the role I played in shaping their futures. Today, I stand at a crossroads, grateful for the journey that brought me here. The scars of the past have healed, leaving behind wisdom and gratitude. Kate's betrayal no longer defines me. Instead, it serves as a reminder of my resilience and the strength of the bonds I cherish. As I watch James and Emma laugh together, I know that despite the hardships, I have created a home filled with love and warmth. My heart is full, and I am at peace knowing that I am exactly where I am meant to be: a father, a friend, and a man who has found true happiness in the simple joys of life.